Hi, my name is Niki Breugst. I'm a professor of entrepreneurial behavior at TUM School of Management at Technical University of Munich in Germany. In my research, I focus at the people side of entrepreneurship. That is, I want to understand what motivates entrepreneurs. How do they decide? How are they influenced by their feelings? And how do they work together in entrepreneurial teams? At my university, we have many students, scientists, and alumni that start their own companies in entrepreneurial teams. And we work together with those teams intensively. One of the questions that the teams frequently brought up in discussions with us was the question of equity distribution. So they wanted to know how to split the pie, how to divide the equity in the team, but also what are the consequences for the entrepreneurial team. And what do you do as an academic when you're confronted with these questions? Well, we try to look in the literature, in previous research, to find answers to these questions. And what we realized was that there is only very little research on the equity distribution in entrepreneurial teams. And that was really surprising to us because equity distribution really does matter to entrepreneurs. On the one hand, for entrepreneurs, this is an important financial incentive. At Firm Foundation, they rarely get any salaries, so their equity stake is a major reason for them to invest effort in their companies. And even beyond money, very often entrepreneurs tell us that their company is like a baby for them. And granting equity to someone else means that you also give away some control over your baby to somebody else. So granting equity can be quite painful for entrepreneurs. That is why we thought that the question of equity distribution is a really relevant one for entrepreneurship research. Our team of researchers, that is Holger Patzelt, Philipp Ratgeber, and myself, we wanted to learn more about the consequences of equity distribution for the entrepreneurial team interactions. Moreover, we also wanted to learn more about consequences for the venture in the long run. To explore team processes, to really understand what was happening in entrepreneurial teams, we decided to do a qualitative interview study, and we interviewed entrepreneurial team members up to 3 times in a time span of 2 years to really track the developments in the team and in the venture. In our sample, we had teams with an equal and an unequal split of the equity. But what we realized pretty soon when we listened to the entrepreneurs was that the actual distribution of equity did not really matter that much to them. What was very important for them was if they perceived the equity split to be fair or not. We even had very unequal splits, such as 90 to 10, and still the team members considered this split to be fair because in this case, for example, the one entrepreneur started the company, the second one joined later, and so they thought that the split also matched the contributions that everyone invested in the venture. So what was really important for entrepreneurs was that their input in terms of contributions they made to the venture was also reflected in the output, their equity split. If there was a match, then the distribution was perceived to be fair. If there was no match, then the distribution was perceived to be unfair. These perceptions of justice or of injustice were really important to our entrepreneurs, and they repeatedly mentioned them in the interviews. Moreover, they also connected their perceptions of justice to the interactions in their entrepreneurial teams. Now, how did these interactions look like? First, let's have a look at teams in which the equity split was perceived to be just. These team members described to us that their equity distribution was a fair basis, and this fair basis was a major source of trust in their entrepreneurial team. Based on this trust, they also developed a strong team cohesion. They spoke a lot with each other. They discussed professional topics, but they also discussed personal topics. They came up with little rituals. They introduced their own team traditions. So they really grew together as a team over time. And we call that in our study, they developed positive team interaction spirals. This pattern was very different in teams in which at least one team member perceived the distribution to be unjust. These teams developed what we called negative team interaction spirals. Now, how did these spirals develop over time? First, the teams had conflicts with respect to the equity distribution, and they discussed their contributions to the venture quite controversially. And over time, these conflicts then extended to other topics in the team. The teams did not build up trust. They withdrew from the team, and they even spoke about their partners in quite a condescending way. So what happened is they met less and less, and if they met, then they had fights. One team member summarized this situation to us. It was really disagreeable to be in a room together. Beyond this pattern of the teams with the positive and the negative spirals, we also had teams which perceived the distribution to be fair. However, although they started out with a positive spiral, they drifted towards a negative spiral over the course of our study. Now, what happened in these teams? They were confronted with massive pressure from their investors. One team member described to us that the investor wanted to drive a wedge within the entrepreneurial team, and this is what we also observed. So the investors sided with one entrepreneurial team member, worked together with them quite intensively, and another team member got isolated in the team. So in the end, fault lines arose in the entrepreneurial team, and the team members fought across these fault lines. And these fights then also extended to a variety of different topics. Trust decreased in the teams, and the team members also started to withdraw from the team. So these teams, although they started with positive spirals, then also developed the same negative spirals like the teams did who perceived the equity distribution to be unjust. These negative spirals that developed in the teams quickly escalated. For the team members, it was very difficult to stop these spirals. And in all the teams in our sample that experienced these negative spirals, we saw one team member to leave the company. And importantly, what they told us is that they did not necessarily leave because of venture reasons, because of economic reasons, but they left for team reasons. But these spirals also had an important impact on the development of the venture. So the teams in the positive spirals, they described to us venture performance in a very positive way. And what we could also observe was that these ventures won major awards, and they also could hire more employees over the time of our study. In contrast, the teams with the negative spiral were less satisfied with their venture performance. And this was also paralleled by the fact that they hardly won any awards, they did not experience employment growth, and one of the companies even experienced firm failure at the end of our study. So the team interactions also really did matter for the development of the venture. Now the question is, what can be learned from our study? I think that I have 3 different points to offer to entrepreneurial teams. The first one is discuss your equity distribution early and discuss it explicitly. There are many contributions that entrepreneurs can make to the venture, be it who had the first idea, be it financial contributions, your expertise, or even the time that you invest in the venture. Anything that is relevant to you, bring it to the table and discuss it in the team. And here, a future orientation really does matter. So also try to come up with estimations of contributions for the future. And believe me, if you think at the beginning that the distribution is a little bit unfair, This will definitely get more problematic over time. So discuss any issue as early as you can. The entrepreneurial teams in our sample did not use any form of flexible allocation of their equity. So we cannot make any observations with respect to, for example, vesting schemes. However, the problems that were described to us by the entrepreneurs could have been avoided with vesting schemes. So this might also be an idea that you want to discuss and consider in your entrepreneurial team. The second suggestion that I have refers to taking on board investors. We suggest that entrepreneurial teams need to be really careful here. Of course, it can happen that investors work more with some parts of the entrepreneurial team and work less with others. However, you as an entrepreneurial team need to discuss this situation. What is really crucial here are high levels of trust and an open exchange about what is going on in these potential subgroups, because you need to see your team as one cohesive unit where everyone makes an important contribution to venture success. And now, finally, the last point that I have refers more to the bright side of our study. So our study shows that entrepreneurial teams can, in fact, find fair solution for the equity distribution in their entrepreneurial team. And this feeling of being treated in a fair way, and also the feeling that you carry a fair share of the responsibility in your venture, can be a major uplift for your team spirit. My suggestion would be to really make use of this drive, to really nurture a climate of trust and cohesion in your entrepreneurial team. For example, you can share your experiences, you can come up with little rituals in the team, you can build up some traditions for you in your team. And this will definitely help you to cope with difficult times. And eventually, this will also help you to grow your company successfully in a team.